Okay, so we're on the second video for solving equations by factoring, and this is the equation that we're going to solve. So to begin with, I'm going to have to get this equation factored. So we're going to multiply the 8 times 5. That gives me factors of 40, and I need a sum of 13. And so the factors of 40 that give me a sum of 13 are 5 and 8. And so those are the two terms that will replace the 5x, and the 8x will replace the middle term so that we can factor by grouping. Remember, it doesn't matter which order you put these in. So you could put the 8x first or the 5x, either one's okay. All right, common factor for 8x squared and 5x would be x, and that leaves me 8x plus 5. On the second pair, 8x and 5, the only common factor is 1, and I need to make sure that I write that there. You always want to put your plus sign so you don't lose anything, and that's 8x plus 5. Without the plus sign, it looks confusing, so that's the one thing you want to make sure you have there. And so my factors are 8x plus 5 times x plus 1. Remember, as you're watching these videos, you can always pause and work this out yourself so that you can check it with me just like we would do if we were in class. So we set each of the factors equal to 0. And then solve for x. So on the first one, 8x plus 5, we're going to subtract 5 and divide by 8. So that solution is negative 5/8. And on the second one, we subtract 1 for a solution of negative 1. So that is it on that particular equation. All right, so the next one is blurry. Sometimes. Okay, so sometimes I have to save these and then open them again. I'll just say notes. I have to save it this way, or if I Okay, so I'm going to try to get to those pages, and hopefully they're not blurry, and that's not. That's just a little workaround I have to do sometimes. I probably should have stopped the video while I did that, but anyway. So on this one, notice it's already factored, so I just set each of my factors equal to 0. And then solve for x. So on the first one, we're simply dividing by 4, and x is 0. On the second one, we're subtracting 3. I'm showing it this time just for a little variety. Divide by 2. And so my two solutions are, let me scoot this one down. So I have x equals 0 or x equals, whoops, don't need another equal sign, negative 2/3. Okay, so that one's finished. Just be careful on this and notice when it's already in factored form and it's set equal to 0, as long as it's set equal to 0, then it's ready to solve. On the next one, this one is not set equal to 0, so we would have to subtract 36m to the third from both sides. And those are not like terms, so we're going to write them separately. M to the 5th minus 36m to the third, and that's equal to 0. Now this one happens to have a common factor, and our common factor is m cubed. So I'm going to factor out an m to the third power. That leaves me m squared minus 36. Now we haven't had one yet that was a difference of squares when we were solving equations. M squared minus 36 is a difference of squares. So that's m minus 6 times m, let's do plus 6 minus 6. And that's just how you factor a difference of squares. It might be something you have to practice on some if you haven't looked at one of these recently. And then we have to set all three of these factors equal to 0 because this one is a variable, right? M cubed or m plus 6 equals 0 or m minus 6 equals 0. Remember, this step where you're setting them equal to 0 is important because you want to make sure you remember how you solve by factoring. Okay, well, we don't really know what to do with m cubed. We haven't had those types of equations before, but just by knowing a little something about math, you know that m has to be 0 in this case. So m equals 0 or negative 6 or positive 6. And this equation has three solutions because, right, I had three factors that had variables. Okay, so on this one it's already in factored form. So we're going to set each of the factors equal to 0. So 2r equals 0 or r plus 7 equals 0 or 5r minus 4 equals 0. So now we solve each of these for r. And the first one is going to be just r equals 0 when we divide by 2. Negative 7 for the next one because we would subtract 7. And then on the third factor it's going to be add 4 divide by 5, so it's a positive 4/5. And those are the three solutions for that equation. Okay. All right, so when you see one like this, you do not want to try to factor it in its current form, but what you would do is multiply by the common denominator, right? The least common denominator. So in this case, our LCD would be 20, and that means we're going to multiply every term times 20. So on the first one, 20 goes into 21 time, so that's just c squared. On the second one, if we take 4 into 20, we have a 5 left over, so that's going to be a negative 5c. If we take 5 into 20, there's a 4 left over, and we multiply that by the 1, so that's a positive 4. And then 0 times 20 is 0. And I know that's always going to happen, but I like you to show you're multiplying both sides of the equation by 20 because anything you do to one side, you must do to the other. And then this one is going to be pretty quick to factor because the leading coefficient is 1, right? This is a 1. So we take factors of 4 that have a sum of negative 5. And this would be negative 1 times negative 4 because we need a positive number when we multiply, but we need a negative sum. All right, and then we go directly to factored form. So it's going to be a c minus 1 times c minus 4. I made that a little too curvy. And then set both of these equal to 0. So c minus 1 equals 0 or c minus 4 equals 0. And so my two solutions will be 1 and 4. All right, here's the next equation. All right, so once again, this one is not set equal to 0. So we're going to add the 5y to both sides. So it will be y squared plus 5y. Let me write that a little closer, equals 0. And then this one just has a common factor. And so you should always take the common factor out first anyway. So the common factor is y, and then we're left with y plus 5. At this point, you would look at the y, whatever's left in your parentheses, in this case is y plus 5, and see if you can factor that any further. We can't, and so we're simply going to take each factor and set it equal to 0. and then solve. Well, the first one's already solved, right? That's all we have to do. So my solutions are 0, and then subtract 5 to solve the second equation, and that's negative 5. Okay, and that's it for that one. Okay, so this one's a little more complicated. Let me look and see how many, just a second here. All right, so I'm going to stop this video here and then pick it up with the next, this equation that you see on your screen will be on the third video for this lesson, and that should be all of it. So I'll see you on the next video.